I'm really worried. It seems that the child isn't his. He threw all my things out of our house. I could really do with some help. Hello Redditors, I've been using this platform for a long time and I'm a big fan, but I've never really needed to come on here before. I'm on here now because I really need advice. My husband kicked me out of the house after finding out that the chat wasn't his. It was a one-time mistake and I didn't know how to fix it. I know you're probably wondering what happened, so let me give you some background first. My name is Felicia and I am a 30-year-old woman. I'm Felicia, a 30-year-old woman. I've been married to my husband, Robin, for 5 years. He's 32. I've been married to Robin for 5 years now. We met on a dating site and hit it off right away. We dated for a few years before getting married. It was a whirlwind romance, but I never felt like it went too fast. Robin is the opposite of me. He's handsome, charming, and ambitious. He has a magnetic personality that draws people towards him effortlessly. He's a successful architect, while I'm a complex character. I'm intelligent and warm, but I have insecurities and vulnerabilities. I'm not as popular or as charming as Robin. I was a bit cautious about trying online dating, not knowing what to expect. But Robin's profile caught my eye right away. He seemed really friendly and confident, and our chats were easy. We clicked even though we'd only met online. When we finally met in person, I was drawn to Robin's outgoing personality. He made me feel special, like I was the center of his attention. But deep down, I could tell he had his own insecurities too, which made me feel closer to him. Our relationship just felt right from the start. We enjoyed simple things together, like stealing glances across the room or having heart-to-hearts. To be continued. My heart speaks, but I sometimes worried that I wasn't as outgoing or impressive as Robin. Despite my doubts, I knew we had something special. I admired Robin's drive and ambition, and he appreciated me for who I was, flaws and all. Together, we faced life's challenges with love and support. From the start, it was clear that Robin was on a successful path as an architect. Robin had a steady income while I was pursuing my passion as an artist, which unfortunately didn't bring in much money. He didn't mind covering the bills, he was just glad to see me doing what I loved. However, his demanding job meant he was often away, leaving me feeling isolated and alone despite his best efforts. The loneliness crept in, casting a shadow over our otherwise happy relationship. To be honest, I was feeling pretty lonely. Robin was doing his best to juggle work and our relationship, but with him being the main breadwinner, his job kept him away a lot. One night when Robin was out again for the weekend and I was feeling really low, I ended up at a bar alone. That's where I met John. We hit it off right away, and with a few drinks in me, things got out of hand and we had sex the next morning. I felt really bad about it, and I promised myself I'd never do it again. I swore I'd never drink like that again. I was too scared to tell Robin. I was terrified of hurting him or messing up what we had, so I kept it to myself, hoping I could bury the guilt and move on. I loved Robin too much to lose him. I knew I would lose him if I ever came clean. The fear of losing Robin was overwhelming, and the thought of confessing filled me with dread. I cherished him deeply and couldn't bear the idea of him walking away because I messed up, so I decided to keep my indiscretion a secret. I locked it away deep within me. When John expressed interest in seeing each other again, I shut him down immediately. I made it clear that what happened was a mistake fueled by alcohol and loneliness and that I was committed to my relationship with Robin. I hoped that by distancing myself from John, I could bury the memory of that night and move forward. Months passed, and just as life seemed I was trying to get back to a normal routine when I found out I was pregnant. I was really shocked and upset. I'd been so worried about Robin finding out about my affair that I'd forgotten to take my birth control pill. I knew the baby was probably John's, but I couldn't tell Robin because I loved him too much to risk losing him. So I made the decision to lie. It was a difficult decision to lie and tell him the baby was his. I was surprised that Robin was so happy when I told him the news. He was so happy, in fact, that he proposed to me just a few months later. Despite the whirlwind of happiness surrounding our wedding, we were married in no time. I felt guilty about deceiving Robin, but I convinced myself that it was for the greater good. I knew that if I told him the truth, it would have ruined our happiness and torn our family apart. Our honeymoon was amazing, and Robin went all out to make it special, despite the challenges of pregnancy, including morning sickness and hormonal swings. He was my rock, supporting me every step of the way. His excitement for the baby only made me feel more guilty, knowing deep down that the child wasn't his. The reality of our situation weighed heavily on me. Robin was not only the love of my life but also my rock. He provided for us financially, and without him, I was worried about money, and the thought of losing him was unbearable, so I tried to ignore my guilt and focus on preserving our marriage. Jay's attempts to reach out only added to my stress each time he tried to contact me. I refused to entertain the possibility of him being the father. I reassured myself that the lie was necessary to protect my marriage and our future as a family. The baby came soon after. He was so cute. I'm going to call him Felix for the sake of privacy. The first few months with Felix were a whirlwind of joy and exhaustion. He was a healthy, adorable little guy, and everyone couldn't get enough of him. Robin was over the moon about having a son, and he stepped up big time to help me out. He even adjusted his work hours to be around more, which made all the difference. With Robin's help and support from our families, we got through those tough early days. As Felix started growing up a bit, I started feeling a bit restless. Don't get me wrong, being a stay at the time, I was really happy at home with my son, but I was starting to feel a bit restless. I missed the challenge of work, and I was ready for something new. I decided to go back to work once Felix was a bit older, around 2 or 3 years old. It wasn't an easy choice, but I knew it was the right one for me. Plus, a break from diapers and baby talk sounded pretty good at the time. I was a great stay-at-home mom, but I needed something more. The days at home were starting to blend together, and I missed the challenge of work. So I decided I'd go back to work once Felix was a bit older, maybe around 2 or 3 years old. It wasn't an easy choice, but I knew it was the right one for me. Plus a break from nappies and baby talk sounded pretty good. Things were great for a while, however as Felix grew it became clear to everyone that Felix didn't quite resemble Robin. The whispers started when he was around a year old, and by the time he was a little over a year it was hard to ignore. I couldn't shake off the worry that had plagued me during pregnancy. I'd prayed that Felix wouldn't take after JN in looks. I knew there was no chance he'd look like Robin, but I hoped he'd take after me enough to throw people off the scent. Unfortunately Felix ended up resembling me a lot, but with Felix and Robin had very different hair colors. Felix's red hair was very noticeable against Robin's blonde locks and my own black hair. It was a bit of a mystery to everyone, including me. I didn't really understand how genetics worked, but I was hoping Felix would end up with hair like mine or Robin's. However, things didn't work out that way. Felix had fiery red hair, just like John. As Felix got older, his red hair became the talk of the town, sparking questions about where he got it from. I was relieved when Robin didn't seem bothered by Felix's red hair. He reassured me, saying he knew Felix was his son, no matter the color of his hair. Robin even mentioned that his grandma had red hair, suggesting that might be where Felix got it from. His understanding and acceptance eased some of the worry I had been feeling. It meant a lot to me that Robin always had my back when people questioned Felix's appearance. There was one time when a cousin of Robin's who was visiting couldn't help but comment on Felix's red hair. Instead of letting it become an awkward moment, Robin smoothly stepped in and explained that Felix probably inherited his red hair from their grandma. It was like a weight lifted off my shoulders as Robin defended me. She handled the situation really well. What impressed me most was how the cousin responded. Instead of focusing on the differences, they praised genetics for its mysterious ways. They highlighted how it could uncover hidden traits and bring surprises into the world. It was a reminder that sometimes what makes us unique is also what makes life beautiful. As Felix turned to me, I found myself considering a return to work. I didn't want anything too stressful, but rather something flexible that would still allow me plenty of time with Felix. I needed something flexible that would still allow me plenty of time with Felix. Remote work wasn't appealing since I was eager to get out of the house. I started browsing job listings, but I wasn't in any rush. Robin, on the other hand, wasn't thrilled about the idea of me going back to work with his income now higher than before. He didn't see the need for me to work outside the home. I sat down with Robin and laid it all out, explaining why I felt the need to go back to work. I didn't have the same social circle as Robin. He was the social butterfly, charming everyone he met, while I was more of a lone wolf with few connections outside our family. With Felix to care for, my world had become even smaller, especially on days when Robin was away for work. I missed him dearly and felt lonely. The four walls of our home started to feel suffocating, and I yearned for a change. There was no one to invite me out for drinks or a girls' night out. It was just me. I enjoyed the solitude, but it felt suffocating. Going back to work wasn't just about earning money. It was about reclaiming a sense of independence and purpose outside the confines of our home. It was a way for me to break free from isolation and monotony and to feel like I was contributing. I wanted to feel like I was contributing to something meaningful outside the family. Robin agreed with me and even apologized for the loneliness I had been feeling. He said he felt genuinely sorry and assured me he was doing his best. I told him there was no need to apologize because, to be honest, I felt sorry too. Robin was putting in long hours at work to provide for us, and he was doing an excellent job of it. Felix was born, and we moved to a bigger house with a home theater and a swimming pool. However, John just wouldn't leave me alone. It was really frustrating. He'd been persistent in trying to meet up, so I decided to entertain him this time just to put an end to it for good. Instead of blocking him as I usually did, I responded to his text. We agreed to meet outside of town to avoid being recognized. When we met, I made it clear to John that there was no way Felix could be his child. I explained that Felix was Robin's and that I had taken the morning after pill after that night. John tried to defend himself by pointing out Felix's red hair, claiming it was like his. I warned him that I would involve the police if he continued to harass us. I asked if he had been stalking us, but he denied it, saying he had only seen us at places like the store or the park. I told him that red hair ran in Robin's family, making it clear once and for all that Felix wasn't his child. I asked him to stop worrying me and explained the situation thoroughly so he wouldn't bother me again. I even mentioned that I had done a DNA test, which finally convinced him to drop it. John apologized for bothering me and assured me he didn't mean to come off as creepy. He was just curious, and if Felix had been his child, I told him Felix wasn't his child and that he shouldn't worry me any further. Then I left with Felix at his grandparents' and Robin heading to work. I was on my own at home. I understood Robin's stress, especially when he was dealing with demanding clients at work. He suggested I take a break and go out the next day while he stayed home with Felix. I was thrilled. It was rare for Rob to have a free day. It was also pretty unusual for him to insist I take time for myself, since I didn't have many friends to hang out with. Most days it was just me and Felix at home, so the prospect of having a day to myself was really exciting. The next day Robin handed me his credit card and encouraged me to treat myself to some pampering. He planned to take Felix to the park for some quality father-son time, so I seized the opportunity and indulged in a day of self-care. I treated myself to a spa session, got my nails done and even refreshed my hair. It felt great to have some time just for me, and I enjoyed every moment of it. When I got home, Felix was in high spirits and he excitedly told me all about his day with Robin at the park. Robin told me how much he'd enjoyed the pizza. We spent some time watching TV together, had dinner and then settled down for bed. However, over the next few days I noticed Robin's irritability creeping in. I thought it was just his usual work stress, so I didn't think much of it at first. But as Robin's irritability worsened, he started directing it towards me, which was really unsettling. His behavior got worse and worse until he wouldn't interact with Felix much at all. Communication became really strained because Robin was shutting down and refusing to engage in conversation, even though I was trying to address the issue. Robin kept insisting that everything was fine and that his behavior was just down to work stress. I tried to address the issue, but Robin kept insisting that everything was fine and that his behavior was down to work-related stress. This pattern continued for several days, leaving me feeling increasingly concerned and isolated. I was starting to worry about Robin's behavior, so I decided to seek help from his parents. After discussing it with Robin, we agreed that I would visit his parents in a few days. They were very understanding and supportive. Robin was fine with the plan and even encouraged us to go, wanting a date to himself the next day. Felix and I got ready and headed to his parents' house. It was a pleasant visit, filled with warm conversation and reassurances that Robin's behavior was likely just work-related stress. Felix enjoyed playing there, and his grandparents gave him lots of love and attention after spending several hours there. I realized it was getting late and decided to head home to prepare dinner. When I arrived, I was shocked to find not only my belongings on the porch but also Felix's belongings, which made me realize something was seriously wrong. I stood there, feeling bewildered and scared, looking at my and Felix's belongings strewn on the porch. Why had Robin thrown them out? I was confused and anxious. My heart was racing as I tried to call Robin, but he wouldn't answer. I started banging on the door. I hoped my neighbors wouldn't call the police for the noise. After what felt like an eternity, Robin cracked the door open just enough to peek out and ask what I wanted. I was taken aback. What did he mean? I just wanted to come inside. I had returned from his parents' place feeling stressed. Felix was tired and needed to sleep. The situation made no sense. I couldn't understand why Robin was acting this way. However, I soon found out why. Robin looked me dead in the eye and told me he knew Felix wasn't his child. When Robin stared me down and said those words, it felt like my whole world had collapsed. I wished I could just vanish into thin air. At first, I nervously chuckled, thinking he was pulling my leg. But his expression told me he was dead serious. He dropped the bombshell that he'd done a DNA test proving Felix wasn't Robin's biological child. It felt like a punch to the gut. Robin's calm voice contrasted with the fire burning in his eyes as he accused me of betraying him and trying to pass off another guy's kid as his own. His words hit me like a ton of bricks, leaving me stunned and overwhelmed with guilt. I stood there, unable to find the right words, as Robin made it clear he never wanted to see me again. I watched as he walked back inside, and he closed the door. It felt like a punch to the gut. I went through a whirlwind of emotions right then and there. I could feel the eyes of our nosy neighbors on me, but I didn't want to make a scene or become the talk of the town. I wanted to cry, scream and beg all at once, but I knew there was no point in begging Robin for forgiveness. He was too stubborn. I didn't want to subject myself to more humiliation, so I called an Uber to take me and Felix to my parents' house. Packing I left the house we shared quickly and went to my childhood home. I'm stuck in my room feeling utterly defeated. I've been crying for a long time. Leaving Robin's place was tough, but now I'm completely falling apart. My folks are angry, of course, but there's not much they can do. They're talking about staging an intervention to convince Robin to give me another chance. It sounds like a long shot, and honestly, I'm not sure it will work. I can't shake this feeling of guilt and dread, knowing I've messed everything up. All I can do now is wait and hope for the best. It's tough right now because my parents are the only ones in my corner willing to lend a hand. Earlier, I tried reaching out to Robin's parents hoping they'd offer some support, but that backfired. They picked up the phone only to give me an earful, making it clear they were on to me. Their anger cut deep, especially since I really cared for them. They'd always been so kind to me and now I'd gone and betrayed their trust. I feel really guilty for letting them down like this. It's a painful realization that's hard to shake off. Another blow was discovering that Robin had EMP'd our joint account before I even reached my parents. Our joint account was our lifeline where Robin would deposit money for bills, expenses, and my own needs since I'm not working much as a stay-at-home parent. At the time, I was really struggling to make ends meet. As a stay-at-home mom, it was a major source of financial support for me, but when I checked the account, I was shocked to find it was drained completely, with every cent gone. I was left stranded and had to rely on my parents to cover the cost of the Uber ride. It was a painful reminder of just how much damage had been done to our relationship. I don't think Robin will ever forgive, but I can only hope. I need help in the form of I'd be really grateful for any advice or suggestions on how to approach Robindo. Do you think he'll ever forgive me? Thanks for listening, anyway. Hi everyone, I know it's been a while since I last posted, and I honestly didn't expect to be back here, but seeing how much attention my last post received, I feel compelled to share another update with you all. A lot has happened in the past month. I also wanted to share the details with you. As I mentioned earlier, Robin and I are getting a divorce. My parents had promised to stage an intervention to help me mend things with Robin. We tried reaching out to him multiple times, but he refused to pick up, even when we called from a private number. So, we decided to take matters into our own hands. We went over to his house to speak with him in person. Thankfully, Robin was home despite the tension between us. He still had a soft spot for my parents because of how kind they had always been to him. He welcomed us inside, although he did shoot me a disapproving look. Nevertheless, he greeted my parents and my brother warmly. Robin's parents and brother were really welcoming and even offered them drinks. I was surprised to hear that Robin wasn't supposed to know about JN. He seemed to notice my surprise and went on to explain that John had approached him before claiming that he and I had sex and that he thought Felix was his. Robin didn't believe him because I usually stayed home, but John kept. Robin was starting to think there might be something in it when he saw the similarities between John and Felix. He decided to do a DNA test to prove John wrong. I was speechless. There was no way I could defend myself, so my parents decided to leave before we left. Robin made it clear that he wasn't going to change his mind. It was obvious that divorce papers were going to be filed against me soon, and that he wouldn't be paying child support. He even threatened to sue for paternal fraud to avoid it. I broke down in tears and pleaded with Robin, but he was unmoved. Eventually, my parents had to physically pull me away from Robin's house. They reminded me that I had brought this upon myself. I'm still at my parents' place, and even though Felix senses something's off, he's too young to fully grasp it. I blame John for everything. I'll never forgive him, and he won't ever have a say in Felix's life, no matter what. Thanks to everyone for their support. I just hope others don't make the same mistake I did. Feeling defeated doesn't even begin to describe how I feel. Describe it. How did I go from a life with luxuries like a home theater and a swimming pool back to my parents' house? Robin had gotten me used to that lifestyle, and now I'm back to square one. Getting back into the workforce after such a long break won't be easy. Thanks for listening. I guess it was nice while it lasted. Like my parents said, I brought this on myself.